Hey, Run Tri Bike community. Welcome to the 133rd episode of our Fireside Chat on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. And this is a very special episode for us. One, we are doing it on a Monday, special. But two, it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and our guest is going to be talking about her battle with cancer, surviving cancer, and what has come out the other side of that survivorship. But before we get started with today's show, I want to remind you that you can find this show along with all of our other shows on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on the Run Tri Bike YouTube channel. We have something for everyone, from shows like our Fireside Chat, where we have serious discussions, to what's in your earbuds about music, and Food Fight Friday at the aid station, where we have a fun discussion about food. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review so that we can keep these amazing guests coming on and providing you with inspiration and motivation from everyday athletes like yourself, as well as tips from experts in the fields of nutrition, sports psychology, and coaching. Today, I'm going to be joined by Cassandra Burke, who is the founder of Catalyst Performance Lab. Being an entrepreneur would be enough of a reason to bring Cassandra on, but she is also a cancer survivor who took that triumph over adversity and became a triathlete, endurance coach, and dietitian. We sure do have a lot to talk about. So without waiting any further, let's bring Cassandra onto our show and have a great chat. Hey, Cassandra, how are you?
I'm good, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. As I told you in the green room, I was super excited when you submitted your How It All Started feature for us. By the way, if you haven't read it, go to runtrimag.com, go to the How It All Started feature under the articles tab, and you'll find it. I was moved by your story when you submitted it. And I was excited to get you on to our show because this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month and you are a breast cancer survivor. Before we get knee deep into, a very sensitive topic that may draw emotion out from both of us, we have an icebreaker for you. Are you ready?
Sure.
You're already smiling. I like this. Our icebreaker question for those who have heard the show before is, pineapple on pizza, yay or nay?
You already know my answer because I commented on this very post on your Instagram feed. I am team pineapple.
Wait, are there technical difficulties here happening right now, or we're shorting out? Okay, so here's my follow-up question to team pineapple. Are you a person who just can put pineapple on the pizza, or do you have to have like jalapenos, or do you have to have ham or Canadian bacon? Like, is there an accompaniment to the pineapple?
Yeah, so the ideal pizza is pepperoni, ham, jalapeno, pineapple.
And you're proving my point, Cassandra. Thank you. Which is, you don't actually like pineapple on pizza. You like it as a part of something else.
It's that salty sweet thing.
Well, thank you for participating.
Covers both sides of your personality.
Exactly. Thank you for participating in our ridiculous question to break the ice and get some laughter going. For anybody who goes to Cassandra's website or goes to her social media platform, you'll know that in 2010, you were diagnosed with breast cancer. How did you take the news? How did you receive the news? And what got you thinking about surviving and thriving when you did get the news?
Yeah, so, nobody ever is prepared to hear those three words, you have cancer. I had, by a fluke, my doctor had sent me for a diagnostic test based on a conversation I had had with her. And when that phone call came in that day, I was absolutely not prepared to hear those words. I was at work, in fact, when I got a phone call, and I screamed outright loud and burst into tears. And it was a very emotional day. And as you can tell, it still is an emotional day, even thinking back to hearing those words. It was, I'd say for the first 30 days, it was a very emotional process of not really knowing at that time what the extent of my cancer was, until having the surgery and the pathology grading and all of those things, and finding out from the doctors what level of cancer I actually had. It was extremely emotional, and I was very vulnerable and had many panic attacks in that 30 days. So it was a very difficult time for myself, my husband, and our 4-year-old daughter at the time.
So after 30 days, walk me through this. You go back to the doctor to get more information, a final determination. At that time, were you building up your response to this for the worst, and the information was better than expected. Walk me through that
Sure.
that 30-day evaluation at that point.
Yeah, so from the time that I was diagnosed to the time that I had the surgery, and then ultimately they did the pathology, and we went back for that follow-up appointment with the doctor, with my actual breast cancer surgeon. It was, definitely relief hearing from her that it was in fact early detection. I had 4 tumors in my right breast. They were all graded very aggressively. I was 38 years old at the time, but getting a mammogram wasn't even on my radar. The aggressiveness of the cancer cell type that they were, by the time I would have even thought about having a mammogram at the age of 40, it may have been too late for me. So I do thank God above that my doctor at the time had the foresight, based on what I had said to her, to send me for that diagnostic mammogram, because my story could have been drastically different had I not gone at that time, and had they not been able to know that it was early stage and that I was going to go through a year plus of hell, for lack of a better word, and come out the other side with my life.
So prior to getting the diagnosis, were you already participating in endurance sports? Were they even a thing for you? Tell me about your life prior to the diagnosis.
Yeah, so I had not done any triathlons or anything like that. I had always participated in the Komen 5K walk here locally every year. That's something that I had just been doing just to support, the breast cancer community in general. Never as a survivor, obviously, at that time. I had 2 friends actually that had the previous year done a triathlon, their first triathlon. And I was like, oh yeah, they tried to talk me into doing one. I was kind of like, nah, that's not for me. Like, it's not, something I'm interested in doing. And I actually, right before I was diagnosed, I was planning on surprising one of my best friends by signing up for a triathlon that she was signed up for unbeknownst to her, and kind of doing it with her prior to getting diagnosed. So when I did get diagnosed, after, it was always in my mind during my treatment that was how I was going to celebrate my victory, was that I was going to push myself to do something that was completely out of my wheelhouse, that I had never considered doing. And that was going to be the way that I celebrated my victory and showed cancer who was boss.
So as you're going through that process for that year, there are obviously going to be peaks and valleys, right? Emotional roller coaster. When you're in that valley, if you can think back to that time frame, were you thinking to yourself, I need to get through this. I want to get through this because I do want to participate in triathlon and show to people that you can not only survive breast cancer, but you can thrive once you get through the process of surviving?
Yeah, so I can say, so I've always been a glass half full person. I'm a very positive outlook person. I like to obviously laugh. I'm a very happy person in general. So going through that whole process, there were many days of just feeling that like I was in the bottom of an abyss that I didn't know how I was going to climb my way out of. And for me, that was very difficult, being someone who's always kind of like up here in positivity, to feel like that sunk. But I had a huge support system in my family and my friends, and actually our local community, who kind of wrapped themselves around us and helped us get through by supporting us, helping to take care of our daughter and bringing us meals and kind of doing all the things that, just was a very heartfelt thing for the community to wrap themselves around us and do at that time.
Even with the support of the community around you, were there ever moments where you still felt alone in the fight?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, there were plenty of days where I laid in bed and just really was so depressed that I struggled with, like, why do I feel like this? Like, this is not something I have ever felt before, and really not knowing how to get myself out of that funk, for lack of a better word. And obviously talking to my doctor team a lot about those feelings. And eventually having to decide to take some medication for a short period of time to help me kind of get through those emotional struggles that I was having, because it was really out of character for me to feel like that.
Yeah, I would imagine so, especially from somebody who's optimistic, right?
Mhm.
And wants to laugh
Yeah.
day in and day out. And I would put myself in that category too. For me, a good day is a day spent laughing.
Yeah.
And so I can understand like going through the depression part of it. Like I just posted on my own personal account about some of the mental health struggles I've been going through for the last couple of weeks. And I'm not dealing with, trying to get through cancer and thinking about surviving cancer.
Yeah.
And so I can only imagine that scenario there. So walk me through the process now. So you've gone through treatment and you're coming, you have an appointment with your doctor, I'm presuming, for follow-up, and you go to that doctor. And is it a scenario in which you believe this is an opportunity for them to tell you that you've beaten cancer? Like what's that process like as you're getting through all of the ups and downs and now you're starting to come out the other side?
Yeah, so I did a full year of chemotherapy and then 33 days of radiation. And, as you're getting closer to knowing that you're finished, um, for me, I think it was, I hate to say it this way, but it was kind of like a best case scenario situation for me. They knew early on that it was early stage, it was going to be treatable. The surgery, they had gotten clear margins. So I feel like I was in the best possible outcome place to go through that treatment journey, knowing that the treatment was just going to set me up for a very low risk of recurrence. And so I always had that positive outlook in knowing and trusting my team of doctors that I was going to get blasted for that period of time and feel all these emotional things and go through the funk for the year plus that I did. But when it got to the end of that and my family and I went outside and rang that bell that we were done, I kind of felt like I was done. Like I had beaten cancer and I was going to be good. Now, that's not to say that every time I go for a mammogram or a DEXA scan or any of those tests, that anxiety goes through the roof because you just never know. I didn't feel anything growing inside me. I didn't feel any lumps or anything like that. There were very small cells that fortunately they were able to detect. So that nervousness and that anxiety comes with every single follow-up test and visit that I go to, and it probably will for the rest of my life.
What's the emotional reaction to ringing the bell? And it's not the same, but this is the analogy I'm coming up with right now. Like we finish a race and we've spent days, weeks, months, maybe a year training for, and we finish the race and there's some elation, but there's also some blues like, okay, this is done. When you ring that bell, what's the emotional, what's the emotion that goes through you? And is there sort of like, I can't believe I've made this and like decompressing, like, okay, how do I start over again?
Yeah. Yeah. So, when we cross that finish line, there's that, like you said, there's that like moment of exhilaration that like, no matter how difficult that race might have been for you, you cross that finish line and immediately you're like, okay, what's my next race going to be? Like, right. It goes from, hard times to what's up. It's kind of the same way with ringing the bell. Like there was that, it was kind of a combination of relief and celebration all at the same time. Like I'm done. I don't have to keep coming back here every week, every couple of weeks to do these things anymore. And there's that celebratory of like, now I can finally get back to my life without having to continue doing all this stuff that I keep having to come to the hospital for. So it's a mixed bag of emotions. But for us and our family and the way that we kind of had, again, that positive, sense of community and support around us, it was mostly a celebratory thing.
For those of you that are watching us on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, feel free to drop your questions into the comments box. We'll get to them as we have time. Otherwise, we'll ask Cassandra to answer them after the show. So you mentioned that you had thought about doing a triathlon before the diagnosis. Mm-hmm. As you're going through the process of chemo and radiation, how realistic is it for you to be thinking, I'm going to do this triathlon? Are you thinking about that? Or you're like, let me get through this and then I can think about that?
Yeah. So actually there are patient navigators at the infusion centers that come around and talk to people while they're in the infusion chairs getting their chemotherapy. And my particular patient navigator, we had that talk of like, this was something that I was thinking about doing after I got through treatment. It was something that I had kind of, again, as that kind of celebratory victory thing inside myself to kind of help me push myself to keep struggling through what I was struggling through, knowing that I was going to come out the other side and be able to move on with my life. And so the first thing that she did was introduce me to the Ulman Cancer Fund's Cancer to 5K program. And that was something that when I finished treatment, that was initially where I started to try to rebuild myself. Coming from treatment into recovery, you're zapped. Like, you have no energy. Like, I wasn't working out at all during that time. So there was clearly like, muscle mass loss and all those kinds of things. So you have to kind of rebuild. Like, I could barely walk, half a mile when I first started. And so through that program and through working with that group and those coaches over that period of time, I was able to get to a place where I was mostly walking a 5K in that first bit, doing a little bit of running, but mostly walking. So there's, for me at least, and I think for many survivors, there's a big gap between getting back to a place of feeling like you can be physically active right after treatment, because you really are just zapped.
So when you're going through this process again, you're ready to get into triathlon, but you are now not only are you a triathlete, you are also a coach, you're also a dietitian. And when I look at your website, you specialize in coaching cancer survivors based on your experience. So were you thinking about becoming a coach and a dietitian and adding all these other feathers to your cap as you're going through this process? Like, hey, I don't have enough to just get through, surviving cancer. Let me add this and this and this and this and this.
Yeah, no, that it just kind of evolved. It was never anything that was on my radar to do. I thought, hey, I'm going to do this one triathlon. It's going to be my victory celebration, and that's it, one and done.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. So I actually, it was like a year and a half after I finished treatment that I did my first one. And I had a friend that is from New York that lives here in Maryland, and she just happened to be doing a triathlon up there 2 weeks after the first one that I did, and I got in a car and went with her. And 2 weeks later, I did my second one.
What's your friend's name?
Debbie.
Does Debbie like pineapple on pizza? She's a New Yorker. I need to know this.
No, I doubt it.
Yes, Debbie. None of that stuff.
Yeah, none of that stuff on a New Yorker's pizza. Yeah. So. So then it just kind of evolved from there. It kind of how you feel when you cross the finish line. You're just ready for the next challenge, right? So my life philosophy actually became challenge yourself to cross your own personal finish lines. And so over the years, I've trained, I've done sprints, I've done Olympics, half Ironmans. I've done 5Ks, 10Ks, 10 milers, half marathons. And my family and I started doing what we call racecations, where we would look for races of various types in places that we wanted to vacation and combine that vacation and that race. And so we were doing things as a family. We would do a Father's Day triathlon together. My daughter would be the swimmer. I would be the biker. My husband would be the runner because he is a runner. And so it just became like a family thing as my daughter grew up, that became a huge part of our family, being active in the endurance community.
I love it. And so as you decide to start coaching and become a dietitian, was the focus going to be, I want to help cancer survivors? Was it, I'm willing to help anybody and everybody, and then became cancer survivors? Like, walk me through this idea of a target market. Pardon me, I'm a marketing guy.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So it actually didn't even start with either one of those.
Of course not.
So in 2015, I actually became a group fitness instructor, and I started teaching like body pump, TRX, cycling. And then I got certified as a personal trainer and started working one-on-one with clients at a local facility here. And, people in the community had, seen my story. We're kind of a small community here. So, a lot of people. Obviously with a child, you meet a lot of people from childhood sports and schools and all that thing. So I moved into that personal training realm, and then people started reaching out to me saying like, hey, how can we train with you if we don't belong to that gym? And so I started Catalyst Performance Lab so that I could work with clients also outside of the facility that I was working at. And so over time, as I became more involved in endurance sports, I was like, hey, I want to become a coach. So then I became a coach. And then the clients, both strength training clients and endurance clients, were asking me obviously for nutrition advice, which only, outside of my scope of practice to an extent. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and go back to school and get another degree and, become a dietitian so that I can help my clients. So, Catalyst Performance Lab is right now my side business. I can retire from my government job in about 2.5 years. And so that is going to be my retirement job, is, running full force into Catalyst Performance Lab and continuing to build my clients. So I always knew that I wanted to give back to the cancer community in some way and to get active with the cancer community. But it never really set out like that in the beginning. And so as I've built Catalyst Performance Lab over the last couple years since 2019, I'm now at that place where, I'm working with several cancer survivors now. I've reached out to the oncology center where I was treated, and I'm starting to get involved with that oncology center to try to start a community of cancer survivors who need help rebuilding strength and physical activity and nutrition when they go from treatment into recovery. And so that's kind of like my next push for 2025, is creating this Cancer to Finish Line program that I want to start running.
That's fascinating. Out of curiosity, you are a cancer survivor and you're working with people who are going through cancer or may have just survived the battle with cancer. Are there moments where it's just too hard for you because you relive some of the moments that you've gone through, but then you come back to this idea that I've been able to get through this, I need to help others?
Yeah, so I never really questioned the why for myself as to why I got cancer. I've never really asked that question. I always, just the type of person that I am, I believe that everything happens for a reason. And so I've always tried to figure out, like, what was the purpose for me being diagnosed with cancer. And that has come back to me tenfold in answers over the years. I have sat with family members, friends of friends in that support chair at the surgeon's office, at the oncology center, helping them navigate a diagnosis that they just got. And so I have come to understand over the years that my purpose in being diagnosed with cancer was to go through the journey so that I could relate and help them get through the journey, as a survivor, as a scientist, and as a support system.
Does it create more than just a coach-athlete relationship where you're more than just a cheerleader for them? I don't know of another word to say there, but you're family, right? Yeah, I got to imagine it becomes sort of that scenario.
Yeah, and honestly, I've had people reach out to me to work with me that that is the reason that they chose me, because they know that I can relate. I've stood in their shoes. I understand what it's like to go through that. I understand the ups, I understand the downs and the challenges. So yeah, it's a big part of who I am, obviously. And I've always been an advocate since I was diagnosed. I was an advocate before I was diagnosed, showing up and helping to fundraise and things like that. So yeah, it's a big part of who I am at my core. And I'm happy to be that support network for people that need that support network.
Yeah, in the green room, we talked about the idea that the vast majority, if not everybody who's listening or watching this show, has been touched by cancer. And you were out there raising money for the Komen Foundation before being diagnosed. Were you affected by cancer, family member or something in your life prior to that, which is why you became an advocate? Or was it just something that's always been a part of you? Like, I want to help others.
Yeah, so I was the first person in my family to be diagnosed with breast cancer. On my dad's side, he had 2 cousins that had passed away when he was growing up from ovarian cancer. I did not know them very well. So yes, our family had been touched, but not in a way that, I was too young to really understand that at that time. My mother's baby sister was diagnosed with ovarian cancer while I was going through treatment and passed away, unfortunately, before I finished my own treatment. So I've been touched in those ways from a family standpoint, but not when I started doing those walks. It was just something that I started doing to be part of that community, and just to support other people.
You are an awesomely fascinating person. And I say that, and I'm glad it brings a chuckle, is that a lot of people wouldn't, donate their time, donate their energy, donate their money to a cause that hasn't impacted them directly. It just doesn't happen, right? With so many opportunities to donate in so many other ways, this idea that you would go and help a community that you haven't been impacted by directly is outstanding. And it's one of the reasons, like when I read your story, when you sent it in, I could feel it in the story that you shared. You were vulnerable in your story with me and allowed us to publish it, which means you were being vulnerable with strangers, let's be honest. And so it's really cool. One of the things that we haven't talked about, and you have it on your website, is you lost 125 pounds at one point. And so it's not just the cancer side of it. There is this component of losing weight, and 125 pounds is a lot of weight to lose, and being able to connect with people on that level too. So you're able to connect with people from a cancer and a cancer survivorship level. Does losing that weight also help you connect when you're talking to athletes about, nutrition and hydration and all of those things, but then also people who aren't athletes and who are looking to lose weight? Is that also the concept? Like, I've stood in your shoes too?
Yeah. I mean, that's, again, I have clients that have come to me for that same reason, that relatability piece. I've been an athlete my whole life, but I was always a larger bodied athlete. It didn't stop me from doing anything. And I don't think it should stop anybody from doing anything. Like, we all can challenge ourselves and push ourselves to, achieve what we want to achieve, no matter what size our body is. So I'm very much an advocate for people being comfortable in the skin that they have. And reaching the goals that they want to, that they want to reach. If their goal is to lose the weight, then I want to support them and help them get there. But if they're comfortable with their body, then I want to help them push themselves to do the athletic things that they want to do, that they can push their bodies to do. So, for me, like, I knew I needed to lose weight. Mostly because of the risk of recurrence for me. Like, carrying all that weight presents a huge recurrence risk for anyone that's been diagnosed with cancer. So that was one of the impetuses for me, was needing to get that weight off to set myself up to continue to be here for my daughter. And that was a big push for me.
Thank you for showing emotion. This is not an easy conversation to have with people. We get emotional on this show as well because we're human beings, right? It's cool that we cross finish lines and get medals and belt buckles, but the reality is we're human beings and we want to connect to each other. And you sharing your story in the manner that you're sharing it matters. For the people who are listening and you're going through, ups, downs, lefts, rights, sideways, and everything else, right? There are people who are here for you, even though you may not know us. Cassandra is willing to help you through your cancer survivorship. She's willing to work with you as a dietitian, as an endurance coach. Our team here, we love sharing stories and we want to hear them. And if you want to just tell us your story and then say, don't publish it, we can do that too. Like, we're all human beings when it's all said and done. And so thank you for telling your story, Cassandra, and showing emotion, because I think that's what connects us to each other and allows us to use endurance sports as a conduit for life and connection. I want to bring a little bit of a lighter side to this conversation in that, the name of your business is Catalyst Performance Lab. And I started to write the question, why Performance Lab? Like, why is this the case? So on and so forth. And then I read your bio. And your bio says director of a forensic science laboratory. And I was like, well, that would make sense. But help me understand, like, you're a coach, you're a triathlete, you're a dietitian, you're a director of a forensic science lab, you're an entrepreneur, you're a wife, you're a mother, you're a friend. You are also on the board of the Mid-Maryland Triathlon Club, which we have a relationship in from the past. Like, how do you balance all of this stuff? Like, when it's all said and done, you have to sleep too, right? Like, how do you make all of this work?
I'm a type A personality. Yeah. I also coach a youth triathlon team.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, I've just always been that person. Like I don't like to be idle. It's very hard for me to sit still. So like if I have to sit still, I have to find something to do in that idle time. That's just me. So yeah.
How could you possibly have idle time?
It happens every now and then.
I mean, even right now, you carved out an hour to talk to us, and I can only imagine there's emails piling up. What do you do for fun when you're not swimming, cycling, and running?
Travel.
Oh, I love this topic.
Yeah.
Favorite place you've been to?
New Zealand.
Ooh, why?
I don't know. I just liked the atmosphere of the country. I liked being, real close to the water, having access to the water. I have to drive, an hour plus to get to open body of water to even do any training. So, being right there, having access to walk down the street and get in the body of water and do some training and just having some fun I just really enjoyed the atmosphere of the country.
Where's a place you haven't been that is on your bucket list of must visits?
Australia. We were actually supposed to go there this past summer, but I waited too long to book all the tickets. So we ended up in Greece instead of Australia. So Australia is next on the list.
So you mentioned racecations earlier. Have you gone to New Zealand or Greece or anywhere else for outside of the US for a racecation?
Yeah, France. We did. My husband and I ran the Disneyland half marathon in Paris. That whole series, Mm-hmm. We've been wanting to do Ireland, but we just haven't gotten there yet. He's trying to get to London for the marathon.
How did you celebrate the half marathon finish? Baguettes and coffee on a sidewalk cafe?
No, we went to see the mouse.
Oh, pardon me. The mouse didn't have a baguette? I mean, you're in France. I'm a huge lover of baguettes. When we lived in Seattle, there was a French bakery around the corner from our apartment, and every weekend I'd go in there, I'd grab my baguette, and I would just start eating it on the way home. Like there was no reason to wait to get home to rip the hunk of bread off, for sure. Talk to me a little bit about coaching athletes, helping people with their diet, and then running into them at races. Are you meeting some of the athletes you coach and some of your clients at events? And if so, what is that like when you see them in person?
So the majority of the athletes that I currently coach actually all came to me either from knowing them previously or through word of mouth here at the local level. So most of my clients are local to me. And they found me through friends or through my postings on USA Triathlon and other places like that have me listed as a coach. So I don't really have any people that aren't local to me. So I do train sometimes with those people in person. Cool. And I have accompanied some of those to races. I've actually done races with some of them as their first race because they were nervous. So I went ahead and signed up and did whatever race they were doing with them to help them through that race.
What's your best tip for getting them to calm down before the start of the race? Do you have one?
No, not really.
So I'll tell you my story. I just shared this with another podcast episode that we did, but I was at Ironman Louisville in 2016, and it was a first-time Ironman event for a friend of mine. And you're standing in line as you walk up to jump into the water because it's a drop-in time trial start, basically, for the swim. And I could see the look on her face, the anxiety, the stress, the worry, all of it was there. And I just put this face of relief on, and she's like, "What are you doing? Why do you look so relieved?" And I said, "I'm peeing in my wetsuit." and it feels so good right now. And that's exactly what she did. And she started laughing. It broke the tension. It broke the ice. And she went on to have a great race and finish.
Oh my God.
But it was like, I've got to help her out somehow. Like this is like, I think at that time it was my 6th or 7th Ironman event. It's old hat at this point. And I'm like, we got to make this fun for her. Like this, she shouldn't be this stressed out.
Yeah.
She's done all the training. And so,
That's great.
I mean, look, I don't know that I'm doing that at the start of a marathon.
Yeah. Got some wet shoes.
We'll have to figure something else out at a race that's not wetsuit legal. But, I just want to have fun at these things, right? We work so hard. Alarms at 4 a.m. for some of us, 9 o'clock at night on the treadmill for others. We work so hard to get to our finish lines that I think that, we forget to have fun sometimes. And I want to make sure that we're all enjoying a good laugh as we make our way through these sports.
Yes.
Do you have any stories you can share with us about, what some people might be like, that's terrible. And you're like, no, it's actually kind of funny that this happened.
Yeah. So I actually went before I had lost all of my weight and I was doing some local races. I was at a local race and I was the last person in the race and the police car was following me. I was literally the dead last person. And I was on a, community street on the course and this elderly woman comes walking down her driveway to get her newspaper that morning and she sees me running and the cop car behind me with his lights on. And she was like, "What? Why are they chasing you?" And I was like, "Ma'am, I think I'm running way too slow for them to be chasing me."
She didn't offer you a cup of coffee? Yeah, maybe if I give you a cup of coffee, there's caffeine.
You may have been able to run faster than I was even at that time.
I love it. It's exactly, but this is why, look, I started this company because I wanted to share stories of everyday athletes. And if you're winning the race, there's very little chance that there's a cop car sweeping up behind you.
That's right.
And an elderly lady asking you why the cops are chasing you in the middle of this marathon, right? But those are fantastic stories. And I think if we add levity to these scenarios, like people would be more interested in participating because oftentimes, right, we see on social media the highlights, right? The PRs, the distance PRs, and we see all of that stuff. Very rarely do we get to see the inside look of the hard. This was difficult for me, but I made it through and I laughed.
Yeah.
Very rarely do people tell embarrassing stories of themselves, like they're trying to protect some identity of some sort. But I think if we share these stories, like, yeah, I had this issue, I had that issue, I think we would get more people involved in these sports. And they would come to realize, like, look, you don't have to win, you just have to show up.
That's right. Yeah. And I mean, I think that both the running community and the triathlon community over the years has embraced that, right? Like there are so many people that participate in these events now that they're not the elite pack of people. Like you said before, like the majority of people in these races are the everyday athlete. Some of them are fast and they're at the front of that pack of everyday athletes. And some of them are, finishing last. I've finished plenty of races last or next to last or in that, last group of 10. But the community still shows up for those people. And I think that those are like some of the best finish lines when you come down that chute and like everybody should have been packed up and left already. And that line of people is still standing there cheering for those last few people coming down that chute the same way they did for the first guy that broke the ribbon. Like that's absolutely amazing.
We're going to be hosting Beyond the Finish Line show here on Thursday talking about DNFs. Have you had the experience of a DNF? Yeah,
my first half Ironman, I had to DNF. I got to about mile 32 on the bike and I bonked. And I had to get off the bike and sit on the side of the road for a little bit. And I, got back on. I would, pedal to nowhere for a mile or so, have to take a break. And finally around like mile 49, I, had just passed one of the aid stations and I, raised the flag and said, I'm done. I need the SAG van. I just can't even get to the transition. Like, I'm just toast. So it happens. I mean, and it happens to people that have finished many races. And sometimes you have a DNF. Like, it's okay to have a DNF.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we're hosting this show. Is because it does happen. Like, you could be the most prepared you've ever been.
Right.
You could be ready to roll, and who knows what might happen. That injury could happen and pull you out, or the unexpected heat wave or the unexpected frost happens and you're just not prepared for it. A couple of years ago, I was going to race the Lake Sonoma 50, which I had done previously. And about midnight, 1 a.m., I could hear the rain on the roof of the Airbnb I rented. And I was like, I'm not even going to start this race. I don't have any warm or cold weather gear. I don't have a raincoat. Like, it was unexpected for the rain to come in. And I just thought to myself, how happy am I going to be for 12 hours, 11 hours through this nonsense, freezing and constantly worrying about whether or not I'm going to finish this race? Or I could still sleep in, go get the coffee and baguette that I really would rather have than waking up at 4 a.m. and driving to the race start, and enjoy the day, right? And I think sometimes we get caught up in this idea that some stranger on the internet is going to think less of us because we didn't start a race or because we didn't finish the race. The reality is you got to make it fun for yourself. You have to do these things so that you can smile and laugh and high five, because that's what the people are going to see and remember when it's all said and done, and not you being, doubled over in pain because you decided to push forward on something that when it's all said and done, just really didn't need to be pushed on.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we'll let the pros race all those races that they need to race to compete and earn their points and all that. And the rest of us, like, yeah, you got to think about yourself. Like, as an athlete, I'm doing this for me. I'm not doing this for anybody else. I'm doing this to challenge myself to see what I can push my body to do. And if on a day I show up and I'm not capable of doing that, or I don't feel like I'm ready to do that, then it's okay to say, do not start, or, you blow out all of your, bike tubes and you have to call it a day.
Yeah.
Like,
yes. Yeah. And what's interestingly enough is we've all seen it. The pro who has pulled out of the race because they weren't having the race that they wanted, and they're scheduled to race again in 2 weeks. And this is their livelihood, right? And you have people who that are athletes that aren't competing for checks at finish lines. And they're like, I can't believe they would pull out. And it's like, look, they're surviving, excuse me. Yeah. They're trying to make it to the race in 2 weeks so that they can podium. Because if they risk themselves here, they're also going to put themselves at risk later on. And if they can pull out of an event, you can too. And life will go on. The globe will keep on spinning for sure. Without a doubt, it will.
Yep. You can cross the finish line of that race next year.
That's right. And look, we're all subscribed to newsletters. We know that there are races happening every weekend.
That's right. You can over-race.
I mean, I just posted on my personal Instagram account that I'm going to stop training for 70.3 Indian Wells because it was becoming unenjoyable for me. And I really wanted to get back to racing ultras. And so I'm pivoting, right? I'm pivoting away. I still have a bike ride. As a matter of fact, after this conversation, I'm going to get on the stationary bike and spin for about a half hour. So I'm still going to incorporate that into my training. I'm just not going to do it with this focus on watts and intervals and everything else. I'm going to use it as a complement to run training because I want to get back into ultras. It happens, and we're allowed to make those decisions all along the way.
Yeah, there's so many different kinds of races out there now. It doesn't all have to be triathlon. Like you said, there's ultras, there's duathlons, there's, kayak bike swim. Like, that's one of the things I want to do. I want to do the kayak. Like, that's awesome. Like,
there's one in Greece, by the way. Like,
oh, there is.
Yeah, I looked it up. And it looks so cool.
Oh, I'll have to go find it.
But you're right. There's Xterras in triathlon, right? So if you want to get on the dirt, go do an Xterra. Like, there are so many opportunities and options out there for whatever it is you're looking for from an endurance sports standpoint. It exists.
Yeah, exactly.
Go find it.
Yep.
Cassandra, thank you so much. Before we jump into the rapid fire food questions, where can people who are interested in learning more about you, your cancer survivorship, or hiring you as a coach or a dietitian, where can they find you?
So I'm on Instagram at Catalyst Performance Lab. My website is catalystperformancelab.com. And you can email me, Cassandra at catalystperformancelab.com.
Awesome. And we will have this show on our Instagram account in an hour or so after it ends, but you will also be able to find it on our YouTube channel and our website come this Friday and Saturday. And then it will be in podcast format wherever you get your podcasts on Wednesday of next week. And when you're there, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review so you don't miss any of our awesome shows. With that being said, Cassandra, are you ready for our rapid fire food questions? But feel free to take your time to think about it. Awesome. Oreos. Do you prefer the old school Oreo, the double stuff Oreo, the thin Oreo, or the Cakester Oreo?
The double stuff.
Nice. Are you a dunker? Are you a split aparter? Are you a pop it in your mouth like an aspiriner?
Split aparter.
And then do you scrape?
I eat the non-stuffed side first and then enjoy the stuffed side.
I love it. So get this. So I pop them like aspirin. Like they don't they just all go in. I don't drink milk or anything with them. We had Jason Fitzgerald on the show a number of weeks ago, and he had this as his advice for eating an Oreo. Take the first cookie, drop it in the milk immediately, and then eat the other ones however you care to eat them. And then when you're ready to finish it all up, when you go to drink that, the remainder of that milk, that initial cookie is broken down into crumbles and everything, and it's like a cookies and cream like waterfall into your mouth when it's all said and done. So the Oreo package today comes with like a cellophane peel top off the top. Are you going into the middle? Are you trying to squeeze your fingers into the part that's underneath the little ledge there? And how many cookies are you grabbing at the same time?
The middle for sure, and usually two.
Two. I'm a 4-bagger. Like I want 4 right away. Like I just give me all of them. I don't want to waste time going back to get more. What they need to do is figure out how to make the edges easier to access.
Yeah.
So your fingers are all pinched in there. You're crushing up the cookies. Like give me an easier way to get in there, Oreo.
Here, the easy way is you just open the thing and dump the whole thing into a Ziploc bag.
This is why I have guests that are smarter than me on. Are you a fan of licorice?
Yes.
Red or black?
Black.
Really?
Yeah.
Surprising.
So I'm more of a savory I like savory better than sweet. So the black is, yeah, but got that little spice to it.
Yeah, that anise flavor is off-putting for a lot of people, though. Like
I'm Italian.
Oh, yeah. Well, then there you have it. Sign me up. Are Peeps a real candy? Or are they just gold? That's my answer. I didn't even have to finish the question. If you're listening to the show, she just stuck her tongue out in disgust.
Peeps are garbage.
There you go. Sweep them right into the garbage. One fell swoop with your hand across the table.
I have a friend that she opens the bag up, lets them go stale, and then she eats them. And I'm like, they weren't good to begin with.
Thank you. I was told that. And my reaction was, so let me get this straight. You're going to give me a bad thing, tell me to make it worse, and somehow it's going to get better? That doesn't make sense. It's, what was it? Edward James Olmos, a negative times a negative is a positive. Not when it comes to Peeps getting stale, folks. It doesn't get better. Candy corn. Is candy corn a real candy, or is it just earwax covered in sugar?
It's earwax covered in sugar. It's definitely garbage. Do not purchase.
Do not purchase. 100% in agreement. No shot. We've been told you should add peanuts to it. And I'm like, they're like, it'll taste like a payday bar. I'm like, yeah. They're like, it'll taste like a payday bar. I'm like, why didn't I just buy a payday then? Like, why would I have to buy candy corn and peanuts to get to a payday? Halloween is coming up. Favorite candy is?
Oh, I'm a Reese's girl all the way. Reese's Pieces,
Solid.
Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Fill up my bag.
Have you seen the docuseries, The Food That Made America, on the Discovery Channel? Or History Channel? No. History Channel. It's fantastic. You should Google the Reese's empire and how it came to be. It's fascinating. It is fascinating how John Reese has built the empire. Yeah, it is. It is amazing. We'll stick with peanut butter since we're talking about Reese's. Creamy or crunchy?
Oh, it depends on what mood I'm in. I'm a Gemini, so sometimes crunchy, sometimes smooth.
You're really dialed into who you are. Well, I'm Italian, so that means I'm going to go with the Sambuca flavored licorice. And I'm a Gemini, so sometimes it's this and sometimes it's that. How do you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Do you put peanut butter on one side, jelly on the other, and smash them together? Do you put peanut butter and jelly on the same slice of bread and then fold over?
Same side, fold over.
Yes, me too. Thank you.
The jelly has to go on top of the peanut butter.
Yes. Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. All right. So now you've got your peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Do you cut it into 2 rectangles, 2 triangles, 4 triangles, or 4 squares?
None of the above.
Eat it whole. Just eat it. Dive right in.
Wrap a paper towel around it and eat it.
Yes. We had a guest on years ago. Shannon is her name. And she told me that she cuts it into 2 rectangles, but then she turns it and eats it like corn on the cob, so that she uses the crust as like handles. So she doesn't, because she doesn't like the crust, doesn't want to eat it, but doesn't want to cut off the crust and make her hands messy.
I don't think I've ever heard anybody eat that sandwich like that.
Never. And it's amazing to me. And this is why I ask these questions. Look, I'm fascinated with food. I'm fascinated with what people eat and how they eat it. And so I learned the best way to eat an Oreo, according to Jason Fitzgerald. And I've now learned how to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich like corn on the cob, according to Shannon. So you never know what might show up on this show.
That's right.
Red velvet cake. Is red velvet a real flavor, or is it just chocolate cake dressed up to go to the prom?
It's chocolate cake dressed up to go to the prom.
Yes. We are dialed in outside of your big mistake with pineapple on pizza.
No, it's your mistake not liking it.
Hey, it's my show. You want to have that opinion, you go host your own show.
The customer or the guest is always right.
Woo, I got a lot to learn about hosting a show then. Favorite flavor of ice cream is?
Oh. Raspberry.
Really? Yeah. That's unheard of. I've never heard somebody respond with that. So ice cream as opposed to like a raspberry sorbet then? Or a raspberry gelato?
When we go to our local ice cream shop here, I always get either the black raspberry or the black cherry, usually are the 2 that I pick.
Cone or the cup?
Cup.
Nice. Okay. We are going to ask you about, we're still in fall, according to the weather today. Pumpkin spice latte or apple cider?
Apple cider.
Yes.
I'm not a pumpkin spice anything.
Not for a second. Like, nuh-uh. Sorry. Not interested.
Me neither.
All right. This question goes out the window. You already answered savory. Chocolate chip or oatmeal raisin cookie?
Oatmeal raisin.
Yes. Oh my goodness. We're nailing it. Pop-Tarts, frosted or unfrosted?
Frosted.
Yes. If you get this, if you match this one, that's it. We're going to start our own food show. Favorite flavor of Pop-Tarts?
Well, they do occasionally carry the peanut butter one. So that's my favorite when I can find it. Otherwise, I like the strawberry with the frosting.
I'm a cherry fan with the frosting. Yeah. Otherwise, the cookies and cream one is my next option.
Yeah.
Tuna salad, egg salad, potato salad. Which one are you eating at the cookout?
Tuna salad.
Nice. Okay. Last question for you. I have had such a blast. I can't believe this has to be the last question. Otherwise, we'd be here all night. Tray of brownies is sitting on the counter. Do you go to the corner edge where you can get a little bit of crust, or are you going in directly into the middle where you get ooey gooey?
I like that little outside corner crust.
Yes. It's so good, right? It gives you the handle.
Yeah, that little crispy on there.
That's right. Are there nuts in the brownies?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Any type of nut? Pecan, walnut?
Walnuts. Yeah.
Are you topping this brownie with raspberry ice cream or vanilla? What are you going with?
I'm a purist. I just want to eat the brownie. I don't need the ice cream.
You heathens putting ice cream on top of your brownies. What's wrong with you? Favorite type of cake? We know red velvet is just chocolate cake dressed up to go to the prom. Favorite flavor of cake?
Carrot cake.
Yes. Do you like raisins in your carrot cake?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? It's so good.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite pie?
I'm not a pie person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Key lime pie, for those wondering.
Oh, yeah.
Not that anybody
That's
gives
good.
a shit.
If I had to pick one, it'd probably be a peanut butter pie.
Yeah, why wouldn't it be? Coffee or tea?
Tea. Not a coffee drinker.
Not a coffee at all.
No.
All right. So one of my favorite drinks in the afternoon is a London Fog. Like it is like heaven for me after a stressful day. Give me a London Fog in the afternoon and I'm a happy man, 100%.
Yeah.
Do you have a go-to tea?
Yeah. Chai.
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
All right. See, I could talk about food all day. So this will absolutely be my last question as we're bumping up against the hour. What's the meal that you're looking forward to the most as a recovery meal from a race or a hard training day? What do you want to have on that plate when you're done?
Usually when I feel like eating after a race, it's going to be like a greasy hamburger. Because I don't eat those often, but like that, I don't know what it is. It's just like I end up craving that after I'm done.
All the fixins, like lettuce, tomato, onions.
Everything on it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cassandra, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for submitting your How It All Started and sharing your story. For those of you who are just joining us, go to runtrimag.com. Cassandra's stories in the How It All Started section under the articles tab on our website. This episode of our Fireside Chat will be on our Instagram page within the next hour or so, but you will be able to get it on our YouTube channel and our website Friday and Saturday of this week and Wednesday of next week, wherever you get your podcast. Thank you, Cassandra. Have a great evening. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me, Jason. Good night.